Chances are that you've probably been out to lunch sometime and you've been talking about buying a house. Some of your friends probably said, hey, it was super easy and it was a lot of fun, and yet other friends might have said, hey, it was a pitfall, it was a snag after a snag after a snag, and I just don't know what went wrong. Well, with a little bit of perseverance and knowing what to look out for, we can keep your home purchase on track. My name is Andrew Finney, and my passion is helping you make sense of real estate. If you need help finding a top agent near you, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. Thank you. All right, my friend, let's take a closer look at those different pitfalls and setbacks that can happen. Fortunately, by knowing that these things could happen, we can alleviate the stress when they do occur and already have a game plan in place. The first thing that can go awry is a missed deadline. A real estate contract is a process. Buying a home is a process. Let's just go ahead and put the obvious out there, because when we get ready to go into contract, there's going to be key dates in the contract. You want to get with your trusted real estate advisor to understand what those key dates and deadlines are in your purchase agreement. Let me illustrate a few for you. When you first open up contract, you're going to have normally 1 to 2 business days of deposit, your earnest money deposit. If you breach that, then the seller reserves the right to go ahead and cancel. The next thing is that when you're in your buyer due diligence period, this is the opportunity for you to order your home inspection, make any repair request of the seller. It's also the seller's opportunity to order what's called a resale package if you're purchasing in an HOA community. A resale package will contain the CC&Rs, which are the covenants, codes, and restrictions for your new home in your new community. You'll also have appraisal contingency, so you'll need to get with your loan officer to make sure that your appraisal is ordered in a timely manner to ensure that your appraisal contingency deadlines are being met, your financing contingency deadlines are being met, and there are so many other things going on inside of the process. That's why it's so important to work with a top-notch trusted real estate advisor near you that can guide you every step of the way, so you're never scratching your head wondering where you are in the process and if you're missing a deadline. Real estate is a process. Consider the fact that if a seller is selling the property to be able to buy their new property, it's known as a contingent upon sale. Now, what happens if they're buying a new construction property, let's say, and they thought that they would be able to move out by the date of the close of escrow that you made in your offer? Well, that's well and good if they are, but what happens if they can't? What happens if something, because of no fault of their own, maybe even no fault of the builder, maybe a public utility company wasn't able to go out and actually wire up that community to the grid yet, and now the builder can't get what's called a certificate of occupancy to allow the person buying it into the home? Well, this could cause a delay. So if this delay happened, what we would want to do is ensure there was an addendum in place, and perhaps even a post-possession addendum, which is simply a seller leaseback, also known as a rent back. For more about that, I have made a video about seller leasebacks and rent backs. Go ahead and check it out after watching this one. That being said, any changes to your real estate contract and the negotiations that have already taken place leading into your escrow process should be done on a form called an addendum. Make sure that you talk it over with your trusted real estate advisor if there's anything that needs to be changed or any additional changes that might be needed. The second thing that can go wrong is a horrible home inspection. When we're talking about a horrible home inspection, I'm not talking about the home inspector didn't do a good job, because let's face it, most home inspectors want to go out there and perform marvelously for you. They want to expose anything and everything so that you're well aware of anything that's going on with that property and the condition of that property at the time that they inspected it. When we're talking about a horrible home inspection, what we're referring to is sometimes it just might not be what you had in mind. The HVAC system might need a service, or the HVAC system may not even work. Now, that's a big one. So if that's the case, then we need to get it fixed. Now, that's the opportunity for you to submit that repair request. But some home inspections are so awful that you just want to back out of the deal, and it does happen at times. Let's say there was something wrong with the structure. Let's say that the roof had a hole in it that you could see out of, and the seller was unwilling to fix it, but pursuant to the lending guidelines, you needed to get that bad boy fixed. These present issues, and this is what we would call a horrible home inspection, is when there's bigger issues on the table and the parties in the transaction cannot agree, being you the buyer and the seller on the opposite side. If this comes to an impasse at this point, this can blow the deal. So please keep a level head, work with your trusted real estate advisor, and do everything that you can to iron it out, and consider, perhaps most importantly, why you want to buy this specific home. That's always one of the wisest things to do whenever something happens that you're not exactly loving it, is to make sure that you remember why you're buying this property. What stuck out in your mind's eye when you made that offer? How long do you plan on living in this property? And getting really clear and honest with yourself about why you want this specific property. Now, another thing to consider is how many other homes are out there, and how many other homes have you looked at to get to that one home. Consider this carefully and weigh the pros and cons of the situation. If it is truly that awful, if it truly is that kind of an impasse, Get with your trusted real estate advisor to help you make the right decision that's best for you. The third pitfall are mortgage issues. When we're talking about mortgage issues, this creeps up a lot. In fact, in real estate practice, sometimes as many as a third of all homes that go into contract will fall out. The number one reason is financing. Why is that exactly? Sometimes this is because some people saw some advertisements on television, or they saw it online, they heard it on the radio saying, hey, get pre-approved in as little as 5 minutes, when that's just not the case. But yet in their mind's eye as a home buyer, they're thinking, oh, okay, I submitted my information and they said I was approved or I was qualified. I took this letter to a real estate agent that unfortunately did not call that loan officer to verify that it was good to go, and you went ahead and made an offer on a property. Now, when you do that, now everything gets real. Now the debt to income ratio's got to be assessed. Now the income, assets, credit, and employment have to be verified. And if that loan officer that provided you with that pre-qualification letter did not do their JOB to ensure that you had a true loan pre-approval letter, which is verifying your income, your assets, your credit, and your employment, this is why a lot of deals can blow up. So to alleviate any mortgage issues, it's extremely prudent to make sure that you get with your trusted real estate advisor, have a buyer consultation meeting to gain clarity on what you're looking for, not only in your new home, but also for any recommendations they have to local loan officers that can assist you with your home loan financing options. We want to make sure that you're making a well-informed decision. We want to make sure that you have a strong game plan in place so that when you go into home shopping mode and you find that house that just caught your eye and you're like, hey, you know what? This is the right one for me, that you can make good on it when you write your offer, as opposed to having heartache whenever it falls through. Make sure that local loan officer, make sure any loan officer that you're working with are verifying your income, your assets, your credit, and your employment situation. Want to take it up a level? Go ahead and ask them what your debt to income ratios are on both the front end and the back end, and let them explain that to you and make a well-informed decision whether you are comfortable working with that loan officer. Another common mortgage issue is when a buyer is in the closing process and they decide it's a grand idea to take out new credit. Maybe that new credit was like, hey, everything is going right in my life, I want to go buy a new vehicle, or hey, I want to go buy a new refrigerator, washer, or dryer, whatever the case may be, essentially applying for store credit or any other credit for that matter. If your debt to income ratios were already pretty close, going back to what we were just talking about a moment ago, to the maximum threshold, it can definitely kill the deal. So what you want to do is make sure that you review any financial considerations with the loan officer that you chose to work with. Now, sometimes people reach out to me on the YouTube comments or they send me a direct email and they say, hey Andrew, when is it too late to switch loan officers? And I always share the same thing. Look, by the time you get ready to start seriously writing offers on homes, you want to have already identified the loan officer that you're working with, because once you enter that closing process, going and changing the loan officer 5-10 days in could present a horrific problem. Remember in point 1 of this conversation, we were talking about missed deadlines? That is a close of escrow missed deadline if that other loan officer cannot perform to that. The seller does not have to agree to extend the escrow just because you decided to change your loan officer. It's very important to be honest with yourself and to identify and have that game plan in motion prior to going in the home shopping mode. This is perhaps one of the biggest mistakes that I see again and again and again, from first-time home buyers to second-time home buyers to even seasoned home buyers that think they know the process. Look, it's great to educate yourself, but that's why we have professionals. It's just like if I went into your job right now, I couldn't tell you how to do your job. I wouldn't know, because I would be trusting you to guide me every step of the way, because that is your chosen profession. I'm asking you to lean on your trusted real estate advisor, lean on your trusted loan officer that you decided to work with, lean on your home buying team, no matter whether it's your first home or your umpteenth home, because too often people want to go view a home without having a pre-approval, thinking, oh, the financing will be the easiest part. Not necessarily, because we'd have to take a deep dive into what's going on. And if the last time somebody bought a home was pre-2008, then what happens is they're completely set up for failure, because it's completely different with all the legislation and all the different laws that have ensued since that time. It's extremely, extremely important to make sure that you gain clarity and insight by first sitting down, remembering to hashtag JTAB, which is just take a breath, to reassess. Come up with a game plan moving forward that's going to set you up for success, and one that you can make a confident decision every step of the way. Please do that for yourself and for your peace of mind. The fourth pitfall is a low appraisal. When we're talking about a low appraisal, it's really important to also gain insight into exactly what is a low appraisal. If the house was on the market for $500,000 and that appraisal came in at $480,000, is it really a low appraisal? It might seem like it's a low appraisal if the house was listed for $500,000, you offered $500 and you needed $500,000 on that appraisal to make good on that $500,000 offer that you submitted to the seller. Now, the best way to know whether it's truly a low appraisal or not is that your trusted real estate advisor should have performed what's called a comparative market analysis for you prior to making an offer on that house to distinguish what the fair market value of that home was to the best of their ability. And of course, you know I've made videos about what is a CMA and why you should care. Check it out after watching this one to gain insight into the CMA process. Okay, so that being said, sometimes appraisers can appraise a property low even in relation to the comps. What happens in that case? Well, in that case, what will happen is the listing agent would have been notified that, hey, the appraisal came in low. Would you like to submit any additional comparables to help justify the price to the appraiser? The listing agent's going to reach out to the buyer agent, or the lender's going to reach out to the buyer agent and let them know the same news. So working collectively, that both of those agents could say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Appraiser, these are the comparables that we assessed this property with to come up with a valuation. Would you please consider them? Now, that appraiser does not have to consider them. That appraiser does not have to agree with them. Ultimately, it's the appraiser's opinion of the value of that home as of the time that they appraise that property. It's important to understand. Now, it can work that it can go ahead and boost that price back up a little bit, or it may not. It's the appraiser's decision at the end of the day. So this goes back to the critical importance of having a game plan in motion prior to going to home shopping mode, knowing what the value of a comparative market analysis is prior to making an offer on a property. Because let's use our example again. If that house is listed at $500,000 and your trusted real estate advisor says, hey, guess what, Andrew? It looks like this home should sell for $480,000 at fair market value. What should your offer be? It should be $480,000 because we don't want to get into the closing process after you spent money on the home inspection and any additional inspections you may have chosen, and only to have an issue with the appraisal whenever it comes time halfway through the closing process to fall out because we didn't do our best service to you up front. Let's do the right thing for you at all times by making sure we're performing a comparative market analysis prior to making an offer, being extremely real with you, being extremely honest with you about how much that home is realistically worth so that you can make a well-informed decision that's right for you. If that well-informed decision that's right for you is that you decide that you're willing to pay out of pocket the difference between the $500,000 and the $480,000 that might happen as a result of the home appraisal, hey, that's a decision only you can make. At the end of the day, all I ask you to do is gain clarity and gain insight on what's most important to you and know exactly what you're doing, because in doing so, you will make the right decision that's best for you. The fifth pitfall are title problems. Now, you might be thinking, Andrew, what exactly would a title problem look like? That's a really good question. And perhaps the best answer to that question is important to understand a little bit more about what your escrow and title officers are doing. Essentially, they're examining what's called a preliminary title report because they need to be able to issue title insurance on your property that's free and clear of anything called clouds or defects on title. Clouds or defects on title could be the result of a judgment from a lawsuit, maybe from another spouse, maybe from somebody else, essentially a judgment against the property. Or it could be a lien from the trash service, the water company, or a mechanic's lien for a contractor that did not get paid. There are so many different defects that can ensue on title. Perhaps one of the most troubling that can prevent title insurance from being provided is if there are two claims on the title. In other words, let's say that the property was foreclosed upon at a point in time in history. Let's say that somebody purchased that property from the bank at that time and the bank transferred the deed to them. But let's say that the person over here was part of an HOA company or part of an LLC that was trying to buy at auction the same property, and they also believe that they have a deed on the property. Who's right? Who's wrong? That's the title officer's job, to be able to review the situation, contact both parties, figure out what's going on, and perhaps if that's the situation, both of them might lawyer up to figure out who technically owns that property and what's going to happen moving forward. At that point in escrow, if this were to happen, then that means everything just stalled until we know exactly who owns that property moving forward. Fortunately, that doesn't happen too often, but it could happen. More common are liens or judgments on the property that must be paid off or satisfied from the net proceeds due to the seller at the time that that property closes, to transfer free and clear title to you that is insurable and marketable to ensure that you receive free and clear title to your new home. As a pro tip here, please go ahead and talk to your escrow and title officer about getting an owner's title policy with the maximum amount of insurance that they can provide to further protect you moving into the future. The sixth pitfall is that either the buyer or the seller could get cold feet in the transaction. Now, this is really interesting. Everything is going along so smooth. Let's say that you're in your buyer due diligence, you did your home inspection, everything everything was gravy there. Maybe you made a repair request or two to the seller. They say, hey, not a problem. I want you to be happy with the house. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and do everything, right? That's a dream seller for you right there whenever they're saying, hey, yeah, we'll take care of it. Anyways, it does happen. Realistically, it does happen. So that being said, everything's moving forward. Everybody's happy. The appraisal comes back. Everything's good. And buyer says, you know what? I want to cancel. Because I was looking on the internet the other day and I found a different house. I think the grass is greener over there. Could that happen? Could the buyer cancel? Yes, they could cancel. But it's important to understand that a contract is legally binding. So what does that mean exactly to you as a buyer if you were to cancel mid-transaction after your buyer due diligence period? It means that you risk forfeiting your earnest money deposit that you put up as a deposit of good faith to the seller for them to take the house off the market so that they would open up the closing process with you. These contracts in real estate are legally binding, and it's important to gain clarity. So this is why it goes back to that game plan with your trusted real estate advisor, understanding what you're looking at, know why you want to buy a specific home, being committed to it. Look, sometimes things come up and it's like, hey, you know what? Oh my God, this other place is so beautiful. This is exactly what I wanted. Then why did you make an offer on the house that you're on now? That's what I would ask you. Why did you make this offer? There was something about this house that excited you. There's something about this property that was right for you. Now, sometimes the people say the grass is greener on the other side. Now, the grass could be greener on the other side, but from experience, why is the grass greener on the other side? Could it be that they use more fertilizer, also known as, exactly, use your imagination to fill in the blank there, right? Yes, it entirely is possible that you just got wowed by something. So the newness and the freshness of the house that you made an offer on may not exactly be there the way it was when you first saw it, but yet you felt compelled. You made a decision to write that offer, and it's important to be committed throughout the closing process. What I'd ask you to do anytime that you have questions arising in your mind's eye about something, whether it be a house or whether it be a situation, whether it be business, whether it be life or a relationship even, is to simply ask yourself, why are you there? What does this mean to you? How do you think that it would change? And what would that change look like to you? Remember why you wrote an offer on it. How long are you going to live in the property? What were the circumstances surrounding it? It's important to gain clarity because any home can be anything that you want it to be through any renovations that you choose moving into the future. The one thing you can't change about a home is what? The location of the property. So either that location is right for you and you're willing to go through the process, make the changes because you love the community or the area, or you're not. So what I'd ask you to do, encourage you to do before you write an offer is to gain that insight up front. One of the best ways to gain that insight up front is to simply write down all your favorite homes when you're in home shopping mode and drive through the different communities. Drive through the different communities yourself at your leisure, at your pace, at your time, and explore. This way you know exactly what the right areas of town are for you and you know what you're doing whenever you write the offer on the property and you're 100% committed to it. That being said, guess who else could get cold feet? The seller could get cold feet. What happens if the seller says, you know what, I thought I was ready to sell this home, but I just can't let go. I just can't let go of the memories and the joy and everything that I did with this home. I just can't let it go. Could they do that? Yes. Could they cancel? Yes. What happens in that case? Well, in that case, they definitively need to return your earnest money deposit back to you. The appropriate thing would be that they would also return any money that you're out from home inspections and also your home appraisal, depending on how far you progress through the transaction. If you're wondering if you could have a legal recourse towards the seller to force them to sell the home, that's a conversation between you and a real estate attorney to examine the situation, not a real estate attorney. So if you have that question or you have that situation going on right now, please reach out to a real estate attorney to best assist you with your options. The seventh common pitfall is when a seller is selling and buying a house at the same time, or even you as a buyer may be selling and buying a house at the same time, often referred to as a contingent upon sale. We mentioned this briefly on the first point in this conversation, which was missed deadlines. Now, this is something that realistically does happen more often than not whenever you see these escrows taking a little bit longer, you see some things falling apart. What's most important to have in a sell-buy situation, not only, again, being a strong game plan and a strong trusted real estate advisor working with you that knows how to orchestrate this process, but also open, honest dialogue and communication with the opposite party. I have found that parties in a closing process do extremely well when you have two really good trusted real estate advisors, maybe one working with the seller, one working with the buyer, and you have a buyer and a seller that have an open mind that are very, very communicative. In such a situation, there is nothing that can arise that cannot be addressed fairly and amicably to both parties. That being said, what is the cornerstone of that? communication. You gotta communicate, you gotta be real, and you gotta be honest. If you know that something could be a potential issue, we want to be transparent with it to either the seller or the buyer, depending on where you find yourself in this equation of the selling buying scenario. Things need to be a little bit more flexible. If things need to be a little bit more flexible, then by necessity, we need to let the opposite party know. Let's say that you're selling a house to buy your new one. Let's say that we want to let that buyer know, hey, by the way, I'm selling this house to buy a new one. Right now I'm in contract on either a new construction home, or hey, I'm in contract on my new home, or hey, you know what, I put it up on the market because I needed to get this under contract so I could write an offer on another resale home. Would you be so kind as to work with me a little bit on this process? I think that we can get this done by X date, right? I think that this is what can happen. Let's have a meeting of the minds and have that conversation up front. Now, if you're on the opposite side of that and you're selling your property and a buyer's approaching you with that dynamic, you need to get with your trusted real estate advisor. As a pro tip here, one of the best things that you could do is find out who all the parties are in the overall sell-buy situation, right? It's not entirely uncommon that you might have a sell-buy on this side, a sell-buy on this side, and one of those other parties might also have a sell-buy. So you can have 3 total sell-buy contingent upon sales. That makes for a really logistical, interesting situation. So what do we need to do? We need to gain insight. We need to gain clarity. And the best way to do that is to communicate. Let's find out not only who all these other agents are, let's find out if it's a real estate attorney state, who those attorneys are. Let's begin looping people into one single thread that has nothing to do with people's personal private information, but more about, is the process on track or not? Is there something I can do to assist you? And if so, what does that look like to you that I could help out with, so that we can make sure that all of our mutual clients are able to move forward successfully with the sell-buy situation, and they each get what they want because you're our client. We want to take care of you. The best way to take care of you is to communicate. We need to know who these escrow officers are. We need to know what these deadlines are. We need to know where they are in their independent closing processes. Now, that's more of an extreme situation, to be honest with you, to think about a sell-buy, 3 sell-buy situations taking place at one time. At the same time, it can and does happen. It's more common it might be 1 sell-buy situation. All the same, review that and how that works with your trusted real estate advisor. Of course, you know that I've made videos about the contingent upon sell and the different scenarios that you could find yourself in. If that's your situation, please go ahead and check them out now. All right, my friends, so now that you know more about the 7 common pitfalls of buying a house and how to avoid them, let's take a closer look at the 14 emotional stages that happen during the home buying process and 8 red flags when buying a house. Looking forward to our next conversation. We'll see you in a few.